Good day, gentlemen,
Howdy.
chairmen of the boards. It's a beautiful day in Tone Town, and today we're going to we're going to be a little bit closer. You know, it's about the journey, as they say.
You shocked me there. I was taken aback.
As soon as you get that piece of gear that you've been searching for, it's anticlimactic. It's better to be in the hunt, and we're still in the hunt perpetually.
Always. Fair enough.
And today the hunt takes us to an interesting query, you might say, which is the idea of acquisitions and mergers as it relates to some of our favorite brands. And recently there's been quite a few notable ones that have occurred. As a consequence of this recent NAMM show, we've learned about brands like Two Rock and Divided by 13 that have merged. We've learned about Jackson Audio and Fulltone. And even, I think a big splash even just a few months ago was Ross and JHS. And, I presume that there's going to actually be quite a few more of these that we see on the horizon. There are a lot of brands that have kind of disappeared or have just sort of diminished to the point where they're not really on people's radar, that were maybe prominent brands 20 or 30 years ago. Or we're starting to see a graying, let's say, of a lot of the brands that we have come to know and love, and people want to transition to retirement. And I think that this is exactly what we saw in the case of Two Rock and Divided by 13, but we'll get into these more specifically. So if right now you're listening and you're saying, well, I've never heard of this stuff, I've never heard of these mergers, or maybe you haven't even heard of these brands, we're going to make sure that you are well informed by the time that you leave this podcast. And that you're familiar exactly with what exactly has happened here, at least to the degree that we know at this point in time. So I think the big news at NAMM was collectively Jackson Audio and Fulltone, and also Two Rock and Divided by 13. Since we are more in the pedal domain, I'm going to say that we start first with speaking about Jackson and Fulltone, also because Brian built the beautiful rigs that are in existence, that were featured at the NAMM show, that were having all of the Fulltone devices in addition to all the Jackson Audio devices. And Brian has known about this for quite some time as being somebody who's a personal friend of Brad Jackson's. So maybe we start with you, Brian. I think that just to kind of guide some of the conversation here, maybe we think about it in terms of how do mergers like this, for example, how do they maybe benefit the company that's being brought back to life? How do they maybe benefit the customers? And maybe how does it benefit the musical community at large? Or are there gotchas that we should be aware of? Any things of those particular natures that we should be considering in the conversation that might kind of help guide us as a jumping off point? Brian, I turn it over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, no, I think it benefits the music community in multiple ways, because it sucks to see a company do so well and have great products and then come out with great stuff, and then all of a sudden they're done. And that was like Diamond, when Diamond went under, or not went under, when they stopped or anything. Like, all their products, like, the prices shot up and everyone was asking crazy amount of money. The same stuff with Fulltone happened too. People were listing, all their pedals for a crazy amount of money for like an OCD or for a full drive, or whatever the pedals were. So it's cool to see these collaborations between companies, especially a company like Jackson, where if you've never been to their shop or you've never seen their stuff, I'll post some. I have some videos and photos, we'll attach, but it shows like they have all of the stuff to be able to do like the manufacturing from A to Z in-house. So it takes the pressure off of these companies that, like Mike Fuller, having to do so much, as they talked about in their video, having to do so much stuff, and like how he got some of like one of the pedals, how the enclosure was like a bare enclosure, and he rubbed it between like a pair of shoes to rough it up or whatever to give it like some kind of a different look. But I think it's great to see like Jackson collab with them to start producing these products so that it can be back in the market, back in people's hands that love the products, that don't have to pay hundreds upon hundreds of dollars. You know, it's like if someone started doing, you know, a pedal that we've all talked about that goes for thousands of dollars, like then, you know, there's all sorts of clones, but like just to make it more affordable for people is really cool. So I think it's great. I'm excited about it. Brad called me a while ago, and he when the conversation starts with "don't tell anyone," I was like, all right, what is this? So, and I think it's really great, and I'm all about, you know, people, you know, second chances or anything that's happened or anything. But I think the products speak for themselves and are fantastic. And they look pretty nice on those boards too.
Agreed. Yeah, I'm excited. Yeah. I have lots of thoughts here. I don't know about you guys. I listen to a ton of business podcasts and read a lot of business books and stuff. And so my thoughts on this are mixed. I am excited that Fulltone is coming back, or is back, I should say. I think where a lot of businesses get into trouble, and this I'm speaking to myself as well, is due to leadership. So I don't necessarily think that Fulltone products are irrelevant, because I think they have a great place in the market. But even for myself, I look at where, you know, Goodwood has struggled in past years, and it's like, oh, that was my decision. That wasn't a product thing. That was a me thing, because I'm learning how to do this as I go. And so I don't think that necessarily if a company like you mentioned in passing, Brian, that Diamond, I think in 2023, early 2023, was acquired by Solid Gold Effects. Mm-hmm. And so I think Diamond is an incredible brand. The products are amazing. I'm a big fan of them. I still use them today. And I think maybe it's possible. I don't know any specifics about that merger or acquisition. I think that maybe, you know, a fresh leadership might be just what they need and might give them a great chance to succeed again. But in looking up some data and preparing for this, in the same breath, I have to say that, you know, it would seem that most mergers and acquisitions, 70 to 90% fail or don't reach their hoped for targets. And so I'm like, man, I'm so pumped Fulltone is back. I wish all the best for Brad Jackson, Solid Gold Effects, JHS with Ross, 2Rock with Divided by 13, and countless others. But at the same time, I think it is so easy, especially if you're a small company, to have eyes that are bigger than your stomach and to take on more than you're able to do well, and then dilute both brands because maybe you didn't really plan this out. And I'm not saying that is going to happen. I just think it's, you know, it's a reality. And so I just really hope that, you know, both companies lift rather than there's a hit taken on both ends of the spectrum at the same time. And this is general terms for just any merger and acquisition. This is obviously no specifics, but that is my concern when we're talking about this type of stuff. So yeah, I don't know. I'll stop there because I know I have lots of thoughts and I could just keep rambling on. But Mason, what do you think? Like, am I just being the biggest negative Nancy here and I'm just pulling the whole vibe down? If so, I'll leave now, man. I'll walk out the door and leave it to more positive people. You and Brian.
I think that there's always a risk of that, of course. And I think when you're talking about, you know, Fortune 500 companies, you know, I think that there's obviously risk of that, especially when you're maybe trying to absorb a business model or a company that's not stylistically similar to the company that is buying it up. You know, for example, if you know, this is not an actual example, but if the New York Times tried to absorb Lancome, they would be two different companies, one being a makeup brand and the other being a news company. And you will sometimes see disparities like that where there'll be seemingly unaffiliated brands trying to merge or being bought out. And I can understand in circumstances like that where there's major leadership changes, unfamiliarity with the terrain, and then trying to sort of place what would possibly be sort of a templated style of management on a company that maybe has a lot more nuance historically. I could see where things like that would create a failure or would at least present a large gap that would need to be filled. I think in the examples of something like what's happening with Jackson and Fulltone, and for those who are not aware, Brad Jackson and Mike Fuller put out a video, I think on the Fulltone YouTube channel, or it's on YouTube.
It's on a couple of them.
And it talks about sort of the impetus for this. And so to kind of give just a rough backstory, Fulltone maybe a year ago or less than a year ago had come out and said, listen, as of this date, we're going to cease operations. Mike Fuller is selling the building with which Fulltone has operated for the last 20 years in Culver City, California. And, he's shutting down the business and is hoping that it will be able to come back in some sort of format. He's still going to design pedals, but Fulltone in the format that we know it is no longer going to exist. And I think most of us knew at that point that there was going to be some sort of comeback. And my personal thought was that it was going to likely be with Boutique Amp Distribution, who I think is the most common company that would relaunch something like this. And their Boutique Amp Distribution does the manufacturing for not Fulltone, for Wampler, for Morgan Amps, has done stuff for Bogner, Friedman, Matthews Effects. I'm sure that there's Egnator. There's a bunch of others in here that I'm sure that I'm missing. But they, in essence, do all the manufacturing and a lot of the distribution channel stuff and all of the kind of turnkey delivery. And this would kind of be sort of a perfect fit for Fulltone in that it seemed like administratively he was just totally burnt out, and that was sort of validated in the video that he did with Brad Jackson. And so in essence, what Jackson Audio is doing is sort of taking care of all the logistical components that go into running a pedal business, doing all the manufacturing, doing all the shipping and receiving. And Mike is still designing products, and is obviously Brad is, I think, helping vet them to a degree, or at least put them into a manufacturable format that works with what they have at Jackson. But it is still ostensibly Fulltone, and Mike Fuller is still kind of behind it. But Brad is sort of taking care of all the things that are not directly associated with just the creating new designs for the Fulltone brand. He's kind of doing everything else through Jackson Audio. And I think that this is likely to be fruitful, because I know although Fulltone had some scars there toward the end and had made some sort of public mistakes as far as the perception of many people in the gear community, I think his products are still excellent. And I think he was definitely a pioneer as it relates to boutique guitar pedals, and irrespective of his demeanor, and I think there's an episode where I talked about the closure of Fulltone and a personal story that I had with him. I still think he made really great stuff, and I think he has a great ear for this, and I think that it was a shame to think that they wouldn't exist, although I always knew that somebody was going to either buy him out or was going to create some sort of licensing deal or way to keep the products alive, because they're just too important, I think, for our particular industry, and I think that his products are really great. And so I'm glad to see that they're back. I think that I know that Brad hasn't done contract manufacturing for other people on this sort of scale yet. My understanding is that he's done maybe some smaller contract manufacturing for other brands, or at least has had that proposal. So I think that this will be a good challenge for them. But I do hear what you're saying, Grant. I do think that even in the same category of products, if you don't hire appropriately to be able to offset the needs, it's really difficult to ensure that you don't lose momentum with your other brands. And that's always the distraction. It's like adding another kid to the family. Like you have to pull from somewhere, you know, and sometimes that distraction can lead to maybe even just a temporary delay in some of the other things that you're doing because you're just spinning more plates. And so I always think that's the risk, but I do think that I hope this is going to work out, and I do think it's going to work out. And I think that, you know, anybody considering the quality difference or whatever, I mean, Mike Fuller is such a stickler. You know, he is really, really particular. And so whatever goes out of Jackson Audio is going to be 100%. There's just no way that it's not going to be exactly the way that Mike Fuller wanted it. And if it's not Brad, we'll definitely hear about it. And I'm just wondering, Brian, since the NAMM board is out there, and I know there were some blank space special products, can you just give us a quick insight as to what that special product was that was that blank space on that pedal board?
Yeah. So I don't know the actual detail of it. I just know that it was a stereo device that was very much like I'm trying to recall if I can get to my photos.
It kind of sounded chorusy when I heard.
Yeah. So they put out a video last night of them testing it. The board that they have, that Brad had it on, I think that's Mike's board. I think it was like a really big pedal board. And they had, it looked like a CAE, like Bradshaw
power supply.
Yeah. And I think it is like a stereo chorusy type pedal. I'll know. Actually, I'm saying I was there because this was last week. But it they've been very under wraps about it. But all I knew about it was that it was some kind of stereo chorusy pedal, that exact same size as the pedal that is the top left corner. I'm drawing a blank on the name of what that pedal is. I think it's some kind of Deja. I'm trying to find the photo of it.
It's not. The Deja Vibe was like the treadle style pedal, and then there was also the Super Trem. I think that was on there. And
I have a photo. Let me share it.
Let me allow the screen share to exist so we can get a closer view for those of us that did not attend the NAMM show.
All right, I just gotta in my photos. Okay, there we go. So if I can zoom.
So this is how you sent it out for those on YouTube. This is how you sent it out pre-NAMM, right?
Yeah, this is how I got sent out pre-NAMM.
Yeah, pre-NAMM. So I actually drove over to Keller, Texas, about an hour from me, which is super fun because when I worked there over almost 10 years ago, the area was like there was nothing around. It was just a couple of these shops, and now it's super well built up. So it was a nice drive over, and I delivered this board as well as the Jackson audio boards. One board just being a display only, so there's no cables. It was just all the pedals being powered by Chalks. So everything on here is powered by Chalks. Okay. I'm trying to see. Nope, that's not it. Anyway, I was trying to find a back photo of it. I labeled the Chalks power supply, but yeah, so this was I took it over to them, and then it's the exact same size enclosure of this guy, but obviously it's right here. This enclosure is taller, so it could be stepped on from it being on the back row. But
I see.
Yeah, so it was super fun. You know, it's a pretty simple signal chain of everything. But yeah, no, they're running them all through their Jackson amps at NAMM. Might I say that there is, if you were at NAMM or you've seen photos, there is a new Jackson amp that is going to be coming out in conjunction with an artist that reached out to them and who played it on The Voice. So that would be super cool when they finally give out all that information.
Cool.
But yeah, so yeah, it was a fun Fulltone when I went there, I was actually surprised. So I have a photo if I can find it. I'll share it again. When I was at the shop, I was surprised how much stuff that they had like prepped for Fulltone already. Just because with a new company coming out, you weren't expecting like them to have so much stock of it. Like
I'm sure that this has had to have been in the works for a number of months. You know.
Oh yeah. Well, like Brad called me like a year ago. Just, hey, I have this idea, and something with Brad is you'll learn is he doesn't just do anything just sporadically. He takes the time. He's a very detailed person. He's a pilot. So he's flying. When he's not flying, he's designing from his computer. So he's very he's a great guy and smart. But like, this is the shop. I took a photo of inside their shop.
And for those of you that don't know, this is on the Vertex YouTube channel. If you want to see the episode with video, this is where all the photos and stuff will show up.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, so if you're listening, basically there's a photo of inside the Jackson shop where they have all these different machines to do different things. And I have a couple of them, but they have all these machines with ovens. I think I have a video. I don't know if I don't think the video will play in here. We'll link it. But basically they have all these different machines, and they have a new one that they just got. It's huge, and it takes up like the whole, like basically when you walk in the shop, it's the first thing you see, and it's their cutter, like their laser machines. So they used to cut on the CNC machine, like the aluminum, and then bend it out and polish it and grind down any like sharp edges. Now this machine can cut, I think, a couple dozen cases at a time, and they're flawless and they come out perfectly, and there's no sharp edges or anything. So this whole area, and then the one next to it is all their machine stuff. So I think what I originally said in the beginning is they are in such a position where that they can take on these other companies, and they're doing something smart by not coming out, not taking over the company and immediately like rebranding it, like changing what it looks like, or coming out with like 6 new pedals at once. Because I think that's sometimes what companies will do is they'll completely change what it looks like, and they'll give you 6 new pedals, and a new company that is coming back out or whatever. Sometimes people can be skeptical of that kind of stuff. So I think it's smart that they're coming out with one product. We years ago tried to release 3 amps at once, and they weren't ready to be released, and we all said maybe we should just do one at a time, like just let's settle down. So I think that they have the means to do this new adventure that they're doing. So yeah, I'm excited about it. But yeah,
pretty cool.
Yeah,
they have quite the manufacturing facility there. I mean, that equipment is not cheap. I've looked into it just for fun. I'm like, yeah, okay, we're gonna have to grow a bit before we can do something like that.
Well, and like the press brake that they have that actually bends all their enclosures, we got that when I still worked there. We cut out a hole in the wall of that shop, and I drove, because I was the only one that had a fork, like who had used a forklift before, or a high-low, or whatever people call it. And I actually brought this thing in while 3 guys stood on the back of the high-low just so it would not tip forward, because this machine was so heavy. So we're like trying to bring this machine in, and we brought it in. Yeah, the machines are nuts. There's probably like 10 different machines there that I've seen that are just like the smallest piece of like chip or whatever for a circuit board that you could possibly, like, so small. And there's just thousands of, like, it can just populate these boards like insane. But they had a huge stock of Fulltone pedals already ready to go, which was really cool to see. So yeah, they definitely got the means.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, are there any final thoughts that we want to talk about in relationship to Fulltone and its relaunch with Jackson Audio as the manufacturer?
I'm curious to see how it's going to go. I mean, I assume that they are going to keep, I don't see why they wouldn't, but they would keep the full distribution network that Fulltone already has, which is large. So, I mean, they have a built-in dealer network. Obviously, there's customers that I presumably can buy direct. I'm not sure if that's the case or not, but
probably,
they're starting
Yeah, I think that there's enough people that really want to see Fulltone back, and he has a loyal group of fans, and I think this will also be good for Jackson because, you know, like with boutique amp distribution, for example, we talked about earlier with, you know, that does, you know, Friedman and Wampler and Morgan and a lot of these other brands, is it gives you the opportunity, or gives Jackson the opportunity to be able to go into a lot of those Fulltone dealers that have been around forever, that are more like mom and pop stores that maybe wouldn't ordinarily consider, you know, carrying Brad stuff. But now Fulltone, it can be an entry point to open up more dealers that were formerly Fulltone dealers, but maybe not Jackson audio dealers. And, you know, not that this would be Brad's style, but some people in similar situations that, you know, hold multiple companies under their roof, they will leverage brands and say, or leverage dealerships and say, well, if you want the Fulltone stuff, you're going to have to take a little bit of this and a little bit of this and a little bit of this. And because they want to carry Fulltone, they will agree to those terms. Now, I'm not saying that Brad's going to do that, but there are a lot of individuals in our industry that will do such things that force you to have to take other stuff as a consequence of, you know, getting to have the flagship products. So I think it can open up some opportunities there.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens.
I saw a lot of good responses from the video, from, you know, whenever something new is dropped, obviously all the Facebook groups people are posting, you see like 100 posts of it from every single person. What do you think? What do you think? And it's been really positive. There was people that have things from the past that they bring up and stuff. And the great thing I would see is a lot of people are like, yeah, man, but just give them a chance. You know, we all make mistakes, that kind of thing. So I'm excited for them. They're very dear to me. I'm not partial to it, but they are dear friends of mine. But I'm very excited for their heart and their ideas. And I have pitched to them so many ideas of different stuff throughout the years. And they're, you know, they're learning, but yeah, it's a solid team, so I'm happy for them.
That's
awesome. Cool. Well, let's break for a moment from our conversation about Fulltone and Jackson before we move on to another notable merger here, and do a few ads. So I'm going to turn this one over to Brian, or back to Brian, and he'll tell us about some of the sponsors that make this podcast possible.
Yeah. First of our sponsors is going to be the guys over at the Guitar Sanctuary, and here in McKinney, Texas. Guitar Sanctuary does carry a lot of these brands that we're talking about, including Fulltone and Jackson, everyone. I think we said that we have like over 1,000 plus pedals in stock of all different types of brands, switchers, Vertex Effects, buffer box, junction boxes, boards, Goodwood audio products. So we carry a lot of different stuff here, including amps and guitars, anything and everything custom, we can do it. So go over to theguitarsanctuary.com, visit in the store over in McKinney, Texas, and say hi to the guys, or shoot a text message over to the phone number, and someone will be happy to chat with you guys. Next are the guys over at Neural DSP, neuraldsp.com. As you know, Neural DSP has so many great products, from Quad Cortex to computer plugins, which are widely used between all sorts of people. I mean, I have a Quad Cortex that I use regularly. I have a lot of friends that do studio work that they are constantly using their plugins, including their new Morgan amp suite, the Mateo suite. All these different plugins that have come out are just absolutely incredible. They are high quality products. I've had some friends actually just use the plugins at a last minute kind of gig thing on their computer, which was a very interesting way of utilizing the plugins, and you couldn't even tell. It was super great. So go check them out. they have a code for 30% off all of their plugins, as long as it is not a brand new plugin. So I think the Morgan suite is not available yet. Pretty much after 90 days of the plugins coming out, they will be available for the 30% off. Use the code Chairmen, CHAIRMEN, for 30% off. And we don't want to forget that the Quad Cortex is now $16.99 as well. So they did reduce the price. Their Quad Cortex control editor is out of beta. It's a great software. You can set it on the floor, you can keep it in your rack, you can plug it in your computer, and you can get all your set programmed, and it's phenomenal. So check them out. Lastly are the guys over at the Sweetwater Gear Exchange. Sweetwater is, as we all love Sweetwater. They have great thousands upon thousands of products that they're selling. But what's handy is selling gear nowadays sometimes is a bit of a hassle. So if you don't want to sell on Craigslist the old school way, or you don't want to sell on Facebook Marketplace because that's sketchy, you can go to the Sweetwater Gear Exchange. You can sell all your products. You can not get any charges on fees for selling that $100 overdrive. After fees, you only get $40, because let's be honest, fees suck. And you can put all of your earnings on a Sweetwater gift card, keep all of your earnings, keep that full value that you sold it for, and you can turn around and you can buy that brand new Goodwood audio interfacer or Vertex Boost or whatever that you want to buy. So go over to the gear exchange at Sweetwater. So it's sweetwatergearexchange.com
Sweetwater.com/used. So no gear exchange, just Sweetwater.com.
Sweetwater.com. Yes, there we go. /used. Got it. Well, that's it for our sponsors. I'll throw it back to you, Mason.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of it. I should show you. I think we talked about in a previous episode about
Did it arrive?
Yeah, because again, whenever you sell, you don't have to pay any of the fees as long as you put it on a Sweetwater gift card. So I did that. Got to my dollar amount faster than I needed.
Let's see it.
There we go. For those of you listening, Mason sold a bunch of gear, and oh my gosh, bought this beautiful Gretsch. What's the model number again for this?
It's a 6120.
It's actually one better than the 6119, and so what a great choice there.
Still got the paper on that bridge,
and real F holes as well. None of those painted F holes. You got the real deal.
Yes, yeah, it still has the paper on the bridge. I literally just got it, so
it's amazing.
I haven't even spent any time to get it set up. Sweetwater obviously offers I forget how many point inspection, 55 point inspection, something like that, and they do a setup to it before they send it. But we all have our own particular preferences as far as setups are concerned. So I figured I'd remove the paper from the bridge once I kind of get it where I want it.
You got to weigh it first, right? You got to weigh it first and then realize if you want to remove the paper.
Luckily, Sweetwater will pre-weigh all these for you, so you can see on there. I think it's called the Guitar Gallery. If they have multiple, or even just a single of any guitar in stock, you can choose from it which one you want. So this one is a particularly lightweight example for a 6120. This one was, I think, 7 pounds 4 ounces.
Nice.
You can get it under 7. Nice. Come on, man.
I know.
I would. I mean, maybe, but I was pretty happy with this weight. Kind of having researched sort of the variety of weights that exist for this particular model. That seems to be pretty much as low as you'll find. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
So in any case, and it does play great. I mean, I've played it acoustically a lot, and it's very, very favorable. There's probably not too much I need to do to it in terms of the setup. So yeah, very happy with it, and was able to take all that money from Sweetwater sales from the Gear Exchange and parlay that into a nice guitar that I never have had before. Lost my G card and got my first Gretsch. Yeah.
But if you got your first Gretsch, would you mean you do have a G card? I don't know. That's just a dad.
Yeah, fair enough.
This is a dad
Fair
joke. Just a dad joke.
I like that, Brian. I like that.
So
Thank you.
let's move to the next sort of merger that was notable at the NAMM show, which was the merging of Two Rock and Divided by 13.
Mm-hmm.
So as many of us know and have heard, Two Rock is an amp company that has kind of had an interesting history where the original ownership, Joe Mulganowski, I believe is how you pronounce it, and Bill Crenard were the original owners. K&M Analog Designs was its original name. And they then became Two Rock. Two Rock, took over the world, mostly and notably with the help of John Mayer, using their amplifiers, having signature amplifiers, and many of their subsequent amplifiers are sort of derivative of that and other Dumble style amplifiers. And they've kind of moved into, somewhat of their own voicing that maybe isn't rooted in any particular Dumble, I think, but still most would largely argue has some connection to that sound. And I think most of their artists seem to kind of follow in the footsteps, if not were the steppers themselves, if I could be so bold as to say, of some of those kind of blues rock fusion tones. Great amplifiers built right here in California, not too far from where I am. And I think have made a tremendous comeback. I think they were bought in about 2011 by the Premier Builders Guild, which was sort of a consortium of various brands. I think that the owners were these two brothers from Pittsburgh. I forget their names. And it had a huge group of people, from Robert Baker, who's a great guitar maker, to Tone King, and I think Fano was involved in this, and of course Two Rock, and a lot of others. And I think that it didn't work out the way that they thought, and eventually Two Rock got bought back by Max Skinner, who is kind of one of the original guys at Two Rock, kind of did all the logistical stuff and production stuff. Eli Lester, who was formerly a Two Rock's number one fan and evangelist, and I've known Eli since I was in maybe my late teens, because he's also a Bay Area guy, and then I think also partially Bill Crenard involved in some way, I think financially and design wise. And brought this thing back to life, because I feel like Two Rock had kind of lost some of its luster when it went through the Premier Builders Guild era, and they were available at guitar centers, and the designs just weren't what they were. I think the look and feel wasn't what they were before, and I think that it lost some of its the kind of the X factor that it had. And I feel like Eli, to his credit, and Mac and Bill and the folks who are running Two Rock, up until this point, have done a tremendous job of bringing it back to that point. And I think that's really hard to do. I should not understate how difficult it is to rebuild a brand when it has taken some hits. Now, luckily for them, it wasn't so much about, I don't know that there was a quality concern maybe about the amp so much. I just think that I think they were getting away from, I think they were getting away from the thing that made them really special. Like they were, I don't know, making tweed amps, and not that I don't think that they could do that. It's just that the positioning just seemed wrong. Like there was a certain mystique about Two Rock that I think really set it apart from other amps that were doing kind of what they were doing, and I think it had lost some of that. And I feel like Eli and Mac and whoever else is involved, because I don't want to speak out of turn here on the involvement of, or overstate, let's say, Bill Crenard's involvement, if I haven't already. Is that they just did a really good job of kind of maintaining the ethos of that brand. So I have huge respect for them for that. And the cool thing that they've done is they've merged with Divided by 13. Now, I don't know from a dealership model standpoint, if Divided by 13 was only available direct, or there were stores that sold Divided by 13, do you guys know the answer to this?
I don't.
If you if one of you could just search Divided by 13 for just a moment in Google, do you see that there are dealers for Divided by 13? Because I kind of have this vague recollection that like you had to kind of get them from Fred.
No, there's a few. There's ultrasound amp.
You know, ultrasound is like, you know, that's where you go to get your Dumble. That's where you go to get your train wreck. They're not like a dealership like you guys are at Guitar Sanctuary. So they probably wouldn't
the
have
amp
like
house called the amp house.
Music Zoo. It looks like there's a few of them.
Yeah, I want to say the Guitar Sanctuary also had them. I want to say,
but I mean,
are
they
looking it up though? I'm looking at a couple of these dealers, and they're all sold out or on hold.
Oh, for sure.
I don't think,
and they're all new, and they're all
active.
new amps. They're not used amps.
Doesn't look like it. Yeah, so I would say the dealer network is almost non-existent, if entirely non-existent.
Yeah, my understanding is that they're primarily you buy it from Fred. And he has a small operation. He works, you know, out of, I don't know if it's his house or a small workshop. I've known a few people that have worked for him over time. And, you know, he's very precise. He has a very unique look for his cabinets. Nobody was making cabinets, especially the heads and the way that they were wrapped. And he had those two colored. And Brian can tell you, as somebody that wrapped a lot of amps, that's not an easy thing to execute, especially with kind of how he has like the piping in between, you know, all of that kind of V wrap pattern that he has. And I think he was.
Can I side note say I would love to rewrap one of those? They look so fun to wrap, but I've never rewrapped one. I had to side note say that.
All right, so if somebody has a project for Brian, you know. Hit him up.
Me up.
All I want to know, Brian, is if you ever rapped or listened to rap while you rapped.
I do, yeah.
Yeah,
I've listened to rap.
You look like a rap kind of guy. Like I'm kind of always on the back of my mind. Like I know he wants to break out right now. He just wants to do it.
Yeah, he's from Michigan. He's an Eminem guy, right? It's like
I never listened to Eminem. I have a friend who I grew up with in high school. Eminem's lyrics were a little bit more than what my parents growing up in a very Christian home would prefer. So
they didn't watch 8 Mile, huh?
They nope. I maybe watched that when I was an adult, not at my parents' house. But
and your parents still don't know.
No, they don't. To this day, they don't know. So, Mom, if you're watching, but no, I have a friend that I grew up with in high school that I knew who was a rapper and still is a rapper. So I'll listen to. He's probably one of the only ones I listen to other than hardcore music.
Nice. That was a good side. Yeah. I think that was worth it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Mason?
All right. So back to Divided by 13. That'll lead us right back in. So where we left off was if anybody wants to rewrap their Divided by 13, Brian's your guy.
Yep.
But this is all to say that stylistically, Divided by 13 is very rooted in kind of classic Vox and Fender style sounds.
Yeah.
And although obviously you could make an argument to say that Dumble has that American or is based on a Fender style circuit, I don't think quite in the way that Fred at Divided by 13 was kind of doing Tweed inspired amps, was doing Vox inspired amps, and just had a really unique look and style and feel about them. And I think Two Rock is really perfect for this for a couple of reasons. I think one, it's bringing something to the table that they don't already do. So it's allowing them to expand into a territory that I think would be much harder for them to do as Two Rock. I think secondly, it's going to give access to those amplifiers beyond what we currently see. A quick Google search yielded for us that they were available from very few places, and the ones that were listed were not even for sale. So I think that it's going to allow people access to those amps that will be unprecedented given the availability of those amps up until now. And I think that equally, it will also, I think, expand people's knowledge of that amp, because I think that it's definitely somewhat of an insider's amp as it relates to kind of like vintage tweed, black panel, Vox style circuits. You'd have to kind of really be in the know. Even though they have a lot of celebrity clientele, I know that they're used on the Paul McCartney stage all the time by Rusty Anderson and Brian Ray. They've been used by Lenny Kravitz. There's been a lot of famous users of Divided by 13. But I think it just helps elevate the brand, get it out there to more people. I think it gives Fred a chance to retire. And I'm sure the deal is structured in such a way, this is totally just me riffing on this. I have no idea that this is true, but I would presume that it would be something like he's getting some sort of percentage, because again, if he's in retirement, you know, if you're building amps all the time, you probably don't have a nest egg. So, I mean, I would presume that he's looking for some mailbox money. That's what I would be doing if I were him in that position. And so I'm sure that whatever arrangement that he has with Two Rock is sort of like predicated on percentages of sales and stuff like that. And I think that Two Rock will do a great job for him. I think that they have a great facility. Their complex has kind of like everything that they need in it. Like there's a metal fabrication shop that's like across the street from or behind Two Rock.
That's awesome.
And so like they can get all their metal made there, and that same metal shop like builds everybody's stuff that's kind of in that area. They do all the Mesa Boogie stuff and many other people's stuff. They've even made some of our enclosures at one point earlier in the world of Vertex.
Nice.
And so I think that they are well set up to do it, you know, and I don't think Fred's making his cabinets anymore. I don't know if he's wrapping them, but the cabinet place that we use for the very small amount of Dr. Special amps that we do every year, about a dozen of them, I know makes Two Rock stuff and a lot of other people's stuff as far as the enclosures or the cabinets are concerned. So though, you know, they can easily ramp that up, and I'm really excited. I think that this is going to be another great merger. I think that this one is. It's certainly more expensive to pull off just because of the cost of amps, but I think it is. I think Two Rock has definitely demonstrated that they're able to kind of relaunch and build a brand in like a really methodical and just kind of brick by brick manner. And I think that that's exactly what Divided by 13 wants, and I think respects. I want to know what you guys think about it. I've been talking a long time.
I mean, I think they've kind of proven themselves on multiple levels. I think for those of, you know, those listening that haven't had to run a business that manufactures, there are a lot of moving parts and there are a lot of things that you got to get right, of which I'm sure I'm oblivious to most with just the size of Goodwood in comparison to some of these companies we're talking about. But even at our level, it's really difficult. Even if you just think about keeping stock on all the parts, especially coming out of COVID, keeping stock on stuff, manufacturing, quality, distribution. Two Rock is amazing at launching a product and selling out very quickly. Even if you think about the Joey Landreth one, which was this past year, I think they did a run of 100 and they were sold out in a matter of weeks, 100 amps. And those were not cheap amps. Like they were... 10, I think up in Canada, they were $10,000.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, so they know how to build some momentum. They know how to get stuff sold, and to think that they are going to take that into a new realm of circuits under a new brand, they've already kind of proven their track record of knowing how to do this. My main concern again would be that they are able to replicate this with the time they have in a day. And the team that obviously is very specialized in what they do, that they're now able to divide their attention or create a system to be able to do this across multiple platforms with more people. Pending that, I mean, it sounds like it's going to be a really great move. I'm a huge fan of Two Rock. I can't necessarily afford the amps that I want to buy from them. Casually dropping 10 grand on an amp is not currently my priority, but like I probably played 3 or 4 of them, part owned one of them this past year and then sold it. And like every time I play, like, man, these guys have, like what Mason was saying, you plug into a Two Rock and you can't directly say, it's just an AC30. Excuse me, just an AC30, or it's just I can't say Dumble because I haven't played one. Mason, you have, but they have their own unique feel and look, vibe about them. As soon as you're in the same room, like, that is a quality built product. So I am excited. I am very hopeful that this is a great move. And yeah, Divided by 13 has a great history, and it would be, again, like Fulltone, maybe not on the same scale as Fulltone, but it would be a real shame to see Divided by 13 disappear. So to give them a second chance and see what's going to come of them, I think is great. And I think Two Rock, it just seems like a great pairing with not a huge overlap of amp types and circuits. It's a smart move from the outside looking in. It seems like a really smart move.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I've never played a Divided by 13 like live, obviously, but I've seen a lot of video stuff of people that have played them. I have a couple friends that do have them, and they're great. I think they're great. So I think having a great product and then having a company like Two Rock come in who already makes great products, I think it's gonna be a great thing, as long as they don't completely change the look of it. I think if they stick to the roots of the look of everything, the sound, I mean, knowing someone like Two Rock, I don't think they're drastically going to change everything. I think that they're going to take the core of the stuff, and they might improve on a couple things, they might add a couple features, but yeah, I think it's a great thing. It's definitely one of those like staple companies. Ever since I started playing, I've always heard about Divided by 13. It's like hearing about Morgan and Dr. Z and Two Rock and Fender and Vox, like hearing all these companies. So yeah, no, I think it's a great move, and I'm excited to see what they come out with. I don't think they were at NAMM or anything. I could be wrong.
I don't think Divided is usually there.
Yeah, so I mean, we'll see.
They'll be there
but
this
I'm
year.
Excited. I'm excited to see what comes out.
Brian, I'm going to ask for a prediction from you, but before I do, I want to talk about our last three sponsors that make the episode possible. So no pressure, Brian. I'm not telling you what the prediction is, but just be ready.
Do it. Let's go.
Our fourth sponsor for today that helps make this podcast possible, we're so thankful for these guys, is monocreators.com. They do our favorite, I can speak collectively here, our favorite at Chairmen of the Boards, soft bags, soft pedalboard bags, gig bags for your guitars. They do incredible stuff that I don't think I've ever had an issue with my soft bags, if I can go that far. Backpacks as well. The thing I want to tell you guys about today, though, is actually their new line of pedal boards and power supplies. Specifically, the power supplies, I've told you guys about this before, is a little bit of a new take on the shape, which I really like as having an option for, professional builds and fitting it into a layout. They're more long and narrow rather than the classic rectangle that you'd see from a lot of other power supply companies, I should say. And all isolated outputs, high current, all the things you would expect from a modern day power supply, but in a very low profile, lightweight configuration. So check out monocreators.com, check out their power supplies and all of the other bags and accessories they have. Use the code CHAIRMEN, CHAIRMEN, for 10% off your order. 90% away from free. Bestronix is our next sponsor, btpa.com. I was literally talking to Brad yesterday, putting in another order and trying to get, stuff ready for an upcoming build that I have. And this guy, I don't know if he has them written on the back of his hand, but this guy knows part numbers like you wouldn't believe. I was asking for USB A to B D panels. I was asking for a specific mini mic cable for a MIDI split that I needed for a PBC 6X in out, for the MIDI on the 6X. I had very specific questions like, yep, get this part number, get that part number. We got that in stock. We're here ready for that. Like, they just have what you need for your pedal board. And so I urge you, please check out btpa.com and use the code DACHAIRS, DACHAIRS, for 10% off your order. Ask for Brad. Just try and stump the guy. Just try and see if they have something. If you can come up with something that they don't have, Consider it a big challenge. Up there with climbing Everest, I would say. btpa.com. You won't be disappointed. Lastly, stringjoy.com. These guys are based out in Nashville. I'll give you one guess what they make. Guitar strings. Coated, uncoated, acoustic. I actually don't know if they do nylon, but who plays nylon these days if you're using pedals? If you do, all the power to you. I love it. But Stringjoy does the guitar strings that you need for your instrument. Vintage spec, coated, uncoated, as I mentioned, in a whole bunch of different gauges. They also do a subscription model, so you can preset what you want delivered to your door on a regular basis. You can also get 10% off your order. BOARDS, boards, for 10% off at stringjoy.com. You're going to love them, based out of Nashville, Tennessee. Okay, Brian, the prediction. I'm actually very curious. As someone that has never rapped in any sense of the word, I have never rapped musically. I've never rapped an amp. I've never dealt with Tolex. What is your prediction on, now that Two Rock owns Divided by 13, or there's some sort of agreement in place, let's say, because I don't know the structure. Now that Two Rock is heavily invested in Divided by 13, 1 year from now, will they still have the triangle kind of look and vibe? Like, is that really hard to do as far as wrapping an amp, or is it, you know what I mean? Like, a new company is taking over that has not presumably done that type of wrap before. Mm-hmm. What's your prediction on 1 year from today? NAMM 2025, will Divided by 13 still have that triangle insignia that they're so well known for?
Yes, I think they will, because, excuse me, it's
confident yes.
It's a staple. It's a staple look. I mean, it's like Nike changing their logo. Like, I don't think it's gonna happen.
Nike Square.
Yeah. You ain't gonna take away the swoosh. Like, you're not gonna replace the swoosh with a boomerang or something. Like, you're not gonna do that. So something I can think of. Like, when this is the thing, and this is all about brand recognition. There's so many brands, and I literally just watched a video on this about Nike. You know, for so long they had to put the name and the swoosh. After a while, you just started seeing the swoosh, but you already know what you're looking at. Same thing for Divided. I don't even know if do they put a name plaque or a name badge on the amp?
I think a 13, isn't it?
Okay.
Or is it?
Yeah, no, it's like a division symbol.
Yeah, so it's like,
and then the number 13, I think.
Okay,
exactly.
And then it can be divided by and then they'll do like /13 sometimes for people who are writing it.
So I think, no, I don't think it will go away. I think it would be stupid for them to remove it, but just to be completely blunt, because that is such a recognition of what the Divided amps are and what they look like. I think if they were to do it, it would be a little confusing personally. Okay. But from a side port or building it, it's not hard to build it. That type of cabinet, you basically have the four sides. You have what they call cleats that go on the inside of the head. And once you attach the front panel of the amp, which I'm assuming nowadays CNC machines will cut out the piping holes to do the V shape. Once that is in and they glue it, or once they glue that in and they fill it in, it's actually not hard to wrap. I've actually always wanted to wrap one because it looks fun.
Come on, Two Rock, come to the party. Let Brian wrap an amp.
Just telling you guys, I would love to do that. I just want to try one. And I've wrapped a lot of crazy stuff too. I wrapped literally like a poster on the side of an amp. I've done a lot of.
Have you ever
really
done suede
stuff.
I really want a suede amp.
That
just stays in one place. I would never get it.
It's very difficult to wrap with. Okay. It is like 3 times the cost of anything because it's just how difficult. It's like tweed type of material. It's just so stiff, and you have to know how to shape it properly. But yeah, I've done suede. But yeah, no, it's a fairly simple amp to wrap once it's all put together. But yeah, I don't think it's gonna go away.
Okay.
I'd be sad if it did.
I would like to do a direct quote of you, Brian, basically saying, Two Rock, don't be stupid. Keep the V. You okay with that?
Sure.
I'm going to plaster
down
it
for
everywhere.
that.
Yeah,
Just
I would be surprised if they had any intent to change the look. I think
look.
it's similar in some ways to like Brad and Fulltone, in that like they're not there to reinvent Fulltone. They're there to sort of maintain what made it great, and potentially maybe even expand on some of those models and things like that to give them a little bit bigger market share. And I think certainly with the Two Rock dealership network and stuff like that, they'll have the opportunity to maybe do that, and be in a better position to expand it than Fred was, and kind of being a smaller individual operation. But also cool, I was just thinking about, they're both prime numbers, 2 for Two Rock, 13. So they got to keep that going.
Got to keep it prime.
I'm trying to think of the next company they need to acquire with a number in the title.
Right.
I would be curious though, speaking of that, for those in the comments, if you're on YouTube, I would be very curious what company people would like to see come back, maybe that we missed, or other mergers and acquisitions that we haven't talked about, let's say in the last few years. Because I was sitting down trying to think through. I got the JHS, Ross, Solid Gold, Diamond, Two Rock Divided, Jackson, Fulltone, but any other key ones that maybe really relate to pedalboard centric buyouts or mergers. I'd be curious to see what we missed, or what you'd like to see in the comments. It is interesting.
I'm curious from you guys what you think. Do you think companies that like these mergers, they're more successful when they already kind of are in that industry, like JHS with Ross? Those are pedal companies. Because I've seen companies like Creation Music Company. They bought Fox pedals a couple years ago, but they just closed down Fox pedals, I think this year, or the end of last year or whatever. Which is it's interesting, and being close to John, I've talked to him a few times, but it's interesting to see these companies that do these mergers and stuff. More of the companies like that are in the same genre. Not that they do better, but I think it's less of a stretch. It's just like, oh, it's the same thing we do every day, just a different product kind of thing. Do you guys have an opinion if there's an advantage, for those kind of things? Like, it's like JHS getting into the synth game. Like, that'd be that'd be out of left field kind of thing.
Yeah, I think it definitely helps. And I think if you already have the systems in place, and I think that's a really big part of it. If you have the systems in place for manufacturing, for distribution, or even how to create content, if you have some content that you can run for both products at the same time, I think all of that lends itself to being able to do it well. And then if you're in the creation example doing pedal boards, and then you take on a pedal company, same industry, very different approach from manufacturing all the way through to content creation. It's
everything is
totally different approach. Yeah. It's a ground up redo on the operation.
Yeah.
So I know we need to finish up for today, but I would say that, even in these ones, we're all pretty pumped about the pairings we've been talking about, from Jackson, Two Rock, Solid Gold to JHS. They're all very much related. And I think that gives you a leg up in a move that's already difficult to pull off. I think it's smart to make it as easy as possible to succeed.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Well, gentlemen, I appreciate you all being here today. I thought this was an enlightening conversation. I hope that listeners feel the same way. Again, if you want to support us, the best way to do that is to give us a thumbs up. If you're watching this on YouTube, leave us a comment, or head over to Apple, to iTunes podcasts, and to leave us a review, because those reviews in turn help us become better indexed so that more people like you can find a podcast like ours, so that they can listen to all of our conversations about gear and just get a little bit closer to Tone Town. We thank you for being here, and we will see you next week.
See you guys.
Bye, guys.